I'm Hayley Robinson. I'm the creator of Equine Evolutions. In this series of videos, I'm going to be talking through lunging, the equipment you're going to need, the method, and all those aspects, and how it can improve your horse's way of going, your horse's posture, and the muscle tone. So in my live video that I put out the other week, obviously discussed equipment. So today I'm just going to show you some of the things that I like to use, that I've found over many years of working with many horses, that works for me and for the horses that I've lunged. Obviously the first thing that we need to discuss is the bridle. I did touch on the fact that you don't want anything stronger than a snaffle, and like I said in my live, that's basically because obviously we're lunging from the ground. Things can happen, you know, this is horses. They can spook, they can have a moment, and we don't want to be having even a split second of more pressure than what's necessary in the horse's mouth. So a snaffle is obviously the most basic, it's the mildest bit, so if you're going to be using a bridle, I'd strongly recommend that you just use a snaffle bridle for that purpose. As you can see, this bridle, we've taken the reins and everything off. We don't need those for what I do. So just a simple bridle, whatever noseband you might use. So take everything off and just use it as it is. Okay, so the next bit of equipment that we're going to talk about is the roller. Now, like I said in my live video, I like to use a roller only because it gives something to put those long lines through so they don't get caught around the horse's front feet and obviously cause a little bit of carnage. So rollers are perfect for that. As you can see, there's some really useful rings, obviously at different heights, and that they're basically used depending on your horse's level of training. So I use this bottom ring here, just for basically getting the horses working and building that muscle up. Like a Grand Prix dressage horse, if they were worked in a roller, they would probably be connected to that top ring. But we're just going to worry about keeping it nice and long and low, and using that bottom ring. In my live, I obviously talked about the nice fluffy stuff that I had that got delivered on a bed. It was just covering the corners up, and I thought, oh, that's quite useful. And it is really, really nice. It's really soft, it's really giving, and I find that it works really well putting it under the roller, in between the roller and the poly pad, and it just gives a little bit of extra cushioning, allows those muscles to move and contract underneath the roller, and therefore building up that muscle tone. It's really good, especially if you've got a horse that has had a bit of muscle atrophy in that area behind the wither. It's good just to fill that area out with something nice and soft and squidgy, just to give that muscle a chance to grow and move underneath. Obviously my poly pad, this is designed for rollers, so that will be popped on underneath with that on top. I also talked about rollers that I obviously haven't got one to show you, but you can get rollers that have got big leatherish kind of pads, like either side, that would sit either side of the horse's spine. They're okay, but I just find them a little bit restrictive because the pads are quite hard, and like I said, you want something that's nice and soft that the muscles can move underneath. So I wouldn't recommend using one of those particular rollers, especially if your end game is to increase your horse's muscle tone over his back and top line. Okay, so the last bit of equipment that I wanted to talk about is obviously what we're going to use to hold on to the horse with, and that is your lunge lines or long lines, whatever you want to call them. They do pretty much the same thing. As you can see here, I have two lunge lines that are looped together through the handle. That gives me one really long, nice line that's got a clip on each side and allows me to connect to both sides of the horse's mouth, giving that nice consistent contact that I was talking about in my live. As I said, I always loop through that lower ring and then to the bit. But before I do that, I'm just going to show you a couple of methods that are used, that they're methods that I have been taught, that I have used in the past, but over the over time I've come to realize that they're not actually that nice on the horse's mouth. So the first one is through the bit and attaching to the bit under the chin. Get that on there. If I can work my fingers. Okay, so as you can see, that is quite a common way of attaching the lunge line. It's okay. I don't like it for various reasons. The main one being is, if you've got a horse that is, he's going to be quite strong, he's going to take off, he's going to spook, all those sorts of things that horses do, then you can end up actually pulling this quite tight under the horse's chin, and you've got that big clip there that's just full of hard metal, and that's going to cause a lot of tension and a lot of soreness under that bony area there, where there's quite a lot of nerves that come down the horse's face, and that's just going to cause a little bit of pain, and it's just unnecessary. Okay, so I don't like that particular method. The other method I don't like is called an overhead check, which is where you put the lunge line through over the top of the horse's head, and that clips again onto the bit the other side. Obviously just ignore the fact that I've got a head collar on this horse at the moment, but I'm just demonstrating this particular method. Now again, this method it gives a little bit of pole pressure, but it also gives quite a false contact with the horse's mouth, because you're actually pulling on the other side, you're pulling that bit up with the tension of the lunge line, and that's not where we want to be putting pressure on the horse's mouth. So that's another method that I don't like to use. Another method that I have seen, although I don't use it myself, I've never used it myself, but I see people do it, and that is to clip straight to the bit like that. Okay, again, that's a big no-no. You're going to be again causing that unnecessary tension, unnecessary pain with having that attached, because look at that action on the bit in the horse's mouth. That's not going to feel very nice at all, and if your horse spooks, pulls away, gets excited, does whatever horses do, then that is just going to be again unnecessary discomfort. So making sure that you're keeping everything as safe and as comfortable for the horse as possible. This method I would definitely advise you to try, and it simply goes through those rings on the roller, clipping to the bit, Okay, so as you can see, I've got the lines attached both sides. It gives that consistent contact with the horse's mouth that we're looking for, and that we also do when we're on top riding them. So definitely recommend trying this method if you want your horse to start working a little bit more through their back, through their core. You can control both sides of the horse with the lunge line. And it's easy to change the rein, make turns, etc. Going over poles, keeping them straight, all those things are really nice and easy when you've got two lines.